You just gave away your last meal to a homeless girl. Do you even have food at home? Brenda's voice rang out across Martin's diner like an accusation. 11:52 p.m. on a Tuesday night in Boise, Idaho. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. 4 customers pretended not to listen while listening to every single word. Reed Hawthorne, 34 years old, single father, stood at the counter staring at an empty table. Table 7, the one with the wobbly leg, where his meatloaf special had been sitting just 3 minutes ago. The $6.95 meal that was supposed to be his dinner, his only meal until Friday. The girl he'd given it to was gone, disappeared into the rainy night. "I'll be fine," Reed said quietly. "Fine?" Brenda shook her head, her 23 years of night shift experience showing in every line on her face. "Reed, you've got a kid at home. You work 2 jobs. When was the last time you ate a full meal?" Reed didn't answer, because he couldn't remember. "That girl could have been anyone," Brenda continued, lowering her voice. "She could have been lying. She could have been scamming you, and now you're going home with an empty stomach." Reed picked up his keys from the counter. His hands were steady, but his stomach was already growling. "She was hungry, Brenda. That's all I needed to know." "You're too good for your own good, Reed Hawthorne." Reed managed a small smile. "My wife used to say the same thing." He walked out into the parking lot. The rain had started again, cold and merciless. Reed climbed into his 2009 Toyota Camry, the one with 187,000 miles, a cracked windshield, and a check engine light that had been glowing for 8 months. He sat in the driver's seat and stared at the dashboard. No food until Friday. That was 3 days away. He had $2.13 in his bank account. Payday was Friday. He would drink water, lots of water. Black coffee at work from the break room. He would feed Jamie the last of the groceries, eggs and toast, maybe some cereal. He would tell his son he'd already eaten at work. It would be fine. It had to be fine. But what Reed didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know as he drove home through those empty streets, was that the girl he had just given his last meal to wasn't who she appeared to be. And in exactly 16 hours, his phone would ring with a call that would change everything. Because sometimes the universe keeps score, and sometimes when you give away your last meal, you get back something far more valuable than food. If you believe in stories where kindness gets repaid in the most unexpected ways, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will restore your faith in humanity. But to understand why this single act of kindness would matter so much, we need to rewind. We need to go back 3 years earlier to the night Reed Hawthorne lost everything. 3 years earlier, Boise, Idaho. St. Luke's Medical Center, room 412. Reed sat in a plastic chair beside his wife's hospital bed. Grace was dying. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors had said 6 months. She had fought for 11. Their son, Jamie, was 5 years old then, too young to understand the word terminal, old enough to know his mother was slipping away. Grace had been a music teacher at Riverside Elementary School. She taught children who couldn't afford private lessons. She stayed late every Tuesday and Thursday, unpaid, because she believed every child deserved beauty in their life. "Reed," whispered that final night. Her voice was so weak he had to lean close to hear her. "Promise me something." "Anything," Reed said, tears streaming down his face. "When you see someone who needs help, don't look away." She squeezed his hand with what little strength remained. "Even when it costs you, especially when it costs you." "I promise," Reed whispered. Grace smiled. "That's why I married you. You have the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known." She died 20 minutes later. The funeral cost $8,000. Reed had $1,200 in savings. He took out a loan, then another loan to pay for the first loan. Grace's parents blamed Reed. They said he should have caught the cancer earlier, should have taken her to better doctors, should have done more. They cut off all contact, refused to see Jamie, their own grandson. Reed was left alone with a 5-year-old boy and a mountain of debt that grew taller every month. He worked as a maintenance technician at Clearwater Office Complex during the day, $16 an hour. He picked up night shifts at a warehouse on the weekends, $14 an hour. Every penny went to keeping Jamie fed, clothed, and safe. Some nights Reed would stand in the kitchen at 2 a.m. after Jamie was asleep and eat a single piece of bread with butter. That was dinner. Then he would drink 3 glasses of water to fill his stomach and go to bed. He never complained, never asked for help, never told anyone how hard it was. Because that's what fathers do. They carry the weight quietly. Now, 3 years later, Reed pulled into the parking lot of Pine Ridge Apartments, Building C, Unit 14, a 2-bedroom apartment that cost $950 a month. They had lived there since Grace died. Reed climbed the stairs to the second floor. His legs felt heavy. His stomach was a hollow ache. But when he opened the door, Jamie was there. The 8-year-old was supposed to be asleep. Instead, he sat on the couch in his dinosaur pajamas, watching TV with the volume turned low. "Hey, buddy," Reed said, closing the door quietly. "What are you doing up?" Jamie looked up. His eyes were exactly like Grace's, wide, honest, full of light. "I couldn't sleep. I was waiting for you." Reed sat down beside his son. "Well, I'm here now." "Did you eat dinner?" Reed's throat tightened. "Yeah, I ate at the diner." It wasn't exactly a lie. He had ordered food, he just hadn't eaten it. "Good," Jamie said, snuggling against his father's side. "Mrs. Patterson said you work too hard and don't eat enough." Mrs. Patterson was their neighbor, a 72-year-old retired nurse who sometimes watched Jamie when Reed worked late. "Mrs. Patterson worries too much," Reed said softly, wrapping his arm around his son. They sat together in silence, watching some cartoon Reed didn't recognize. Jamie's breathing slowly evened out. Within 10 minutes, he was asleep. Reed carried him to bed, tucked him in, and kissed his forehead. "I love you, buddy." Then Reed went to the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator. Inside was a carton of eggs, 4 left, half a gallon of milk, some cheese, bread, butter, enough to feed Jamie for 3 days. Reed drank a glass of water, then another. Then he went to bed. His stomach growled through the night, but Reed had learned to ignore it. The next morning, Wednesday, Reed woke at 5:30 a.m. He made Jamie breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, orange juice. "Aren't you eating, Dad?" Jamie asked, sitting at their small kitchen table. "I already ate," Reed lied, sipping black coffee. "I had a big breakfast." Jamie nodded, believing him completely, because children always believe their fathers. Reed dropped Jamie off at school at 7:45 a.m. Then he drove to Clearwater Office Complex. He clocked in at 8 a.m. exactly. His job was simple: fix things, leaking faucets, broken light fixtures, jammed doors, HVAC units that stopped working. Reed was good at it, patient, methodical. By noon, Reed's stomach was cramping. He drank water from the fountain, black coffee from the break room. He told himself it was fine. At 2:30 p.m., Reed was replacing a light fixture on the 4th floor when his phone rang. Unknown number. Reed almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello? Is this Reed Hawthorne?" A woman's voice. Professional, formal. "Yes, this is Reed." "Mr. Hawthorne, my name is Violet Ashford. I'm calling from Meridian Solutions Group." Reed had never heard of Meridian Solutions Group. I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong number. You gave a meal to a young woman last night at Martin's Diner. Her name is Isla." Reed froze. The light fixture in his hand suddenly felt very heavy. "How do you know about that?" Reed asked carefully. "Because Isla is my daughter," Violet said. Silence. "I'd like to meet with you, Mr. Hawthorne, today, if possible. There's something important I need to discuss." Reed's mind raced. Was this some kind of scam? Was Isla in trouble? Was he in trouble? "What is this about?" Reed asked. "It's about gratitude and about repaying a kindness that you showed when you had every reason not to." "I don't understand." "You will. Can you meet me at 4 p.m. today? The address is 1600 West River Street, 10th floor." Reed knew that address. It was the Sapphire Tower, the tallest building in downtown Boise, where all the big companies had their offices. I'm working," Reed stammered. "I've already spoken with your supervisor. You've been given the afternoon off, paid." Reed's heart started pounding. "Who are you?" "Come to the meeting, Mr. Hawthorne. All your questions will be answered." The line went dead. Reed stood on the 4th floor of Clearwater Office Complex, holding a light fixture, staring at his phone. What the hell just happened?
At 3:45 p.m., Reed stood outside the Sapphire Tower. He had changed into the only dress shirt he owned, a light blue button-down that was 3 years old. His shoes were scuffed. His pants had a small stain he couldn't get out. He felt completely out of place. Reed walked through the revolving doors into a lobby that looked like it cost more than his entire apartment building. Marble floors, chandeliers, a security desk with 3 guards. "Can I help you?" one of the guards asked. "I'm here to see Violet Ashford, 10th floor." The guard checked his computer. "Name?" "Reed Hawthorne." The guard nodded. "You're expected. Take elevator 3. Reed's hands were sweating as he rode the elevator up. The doors opened onto a reception area that was all glass and steel. A young man sat behind a desk. "Mr. Hawthorne?" "Yes." "Right this way." Reed was led down a hallway lined with offices. Through the glass walls, he could see people in expensive suits, working on computers, talking on phones. Everyone looked important. The young man stopped at a corner office. The nameplate read, "Violet Ashford, CEO, Meridian Solutions Group." CEO. Reed's stomach dropped. The young man knocked, then opened the door. Inside was a woman in her late 40s. She wore a charcoal gray suit. Her hair was pulled back. Her eyes were sharp, but not unkind. And sitting beside her, in a chair by the window, was the girl from last night, Isla. She looked completely different. Her hair was clean and dry. She wore fresh clothes, but it was definitely her. "Mr. Hawthorne," Violet stood and extended her hand. "Thank you for coming." Reed shook her hand, completely confused. "I don't understand what's happening." "Please, sit down." Reed sat. Violet returned to her desk. "Let me start by introducing myself properly. My name is Violet Ashford. I'm the CEO of Meridian Solutions Group. We're a tech consulting firm. We do cybersecurity, data management, and software development for Fortune 500 companies." Reed nodded, though he had no idea what any of that meant. Violet gestured to Isla. "This is my daughter, Isla Ashford. She's 17 years old." Isla's voice was quiet. "Because I thought my mother didn't care about me." Violet's face tightened. "I've been working 80-hour weeks for the past year. We landed a major contract with a pharmaceutical company. It's been all-consuming, and I didn't realize how much I was neglecting my daughter. We had a fight, a bad one. I said terrible things. She said terrible things. And I left." "I've been looking for her for 2 days," Violet said. "I hired a private investigator. I filed a missing persons report. I've been losing my mind." Reed's head was spinning. How did you find her? Violet pulled out her phone and turned it toward Reed. On the screen was a video. Security footage from Martin's diner. Reed watched himself push his plate across the table to Isla. The diner owner, Martin Schultz, is an old friend of mine. When Isla came in this morning, afraid and alone, he recognized her from the missing persons report. He called me immediately. But before I could get there, Violet continued, Isla told Martin what had happened the night before, about a man who gave her his last meal, a man who had every reason to walk away, but didn't. Violet set her phone down. Martin showed me this footage, and when I saw what you did, Mr. Hawthorne, when I saw you give my daughter your food when you clearly had nothing left yourself, Violet's voice cracked. I realized something. What? Asked Reed. That my daughter had been seen by a stranger in a way I hadn't seen her in a year. You saw her as a human being who needed help, not as an inconvenience, not as a problem to solve later. You saw her, and you acted. Tears rolled down Violet's cheeks. You saved my daughter's life, Mr. Hawthorne. If she had stayed out there another night... Violet couldn't finish the sentence. Reed looked at Isla. Are you okay now? Isla nodded. We're talking, really talking, for the first time in a long time. I'm glad, Reed said simply. Violet wiped her eyes and composed herself. I asked you here because I need to repay you. And don't say it's not necessary. It absolutely is. I didn't do it for a reward, Reed said. I know. That's exactly why you deserve one. Violet opened a folder on her desk and pulled out a piece of paper. She slid it across to Reed. Reed looked down. It was a check. For $50,000. Reed's hands started shaking. I can't accept this. Yes, you can. It's too much. It's not nearly enough, Violet said firmly. But it's a start. Reed stared at the check. $50,000. It was more money than he had seen in his entire life. Mr. Hawthorne, Violet continued, I did some research on you. I hope you don't mind. Reed looked up. You're a single father. Your wife passed away 3 years ago. You work 2 jobs. You're drowning in medical debt. You've been late on rent 4 times in the past year. You're barely surviving. Reed's face flushed with shame. There's no shame in struggling, Violet said gently. There's only shame in having the power to help and choosing not to. You had nothing and you gave anyway. That's not weakness, that's strength. I just did what anyone would do, Reed said quietly. No, Isla spoke up. You didn't. 7 people walked past me last night. 7. They all looked away. You were the only one who stopped. Reed didn't know what to say. Violet stood up. Take the check, Mr. Hawthorne. Pay off your debt. Get ahead for once in your life. You've earned it. Reed picked up the check with trembling hands. $50,000. Thank you. I don't know how to thank you. You already did. You gave my daughter a meal when you had none for yourself. That's thanks enough. But Violet wasn't done. There's one more thing, she said. I'd like to offer you a job. Reed blinked. A job? We need a facilities manager here at Meridian. Someone to oversee building maintenance, manage contractors, handle logistics. It pays $75,000 a year. Full benefits, health insurance, dental, vision, retirement plan, 2 weeks paid vacation. Reed's mind went blank. $75,000.
He currently made $32,000 between both his jobs. "I don't have a college degree," Reed said. "I don't care. You're reliable, you're hardworking, and you're honest. That's worth more than any degree." I don't know what to say." "Say yes." Reed thought of Jamie, of the eggs in the refrigerator, of the water he had been drinking instead of eating, of the 3 years he had spent drowning. "Yes," Reed said. "Yes, I'll take it." Violet smiled. "Good. You start Monday."
Reed walked out of the Sapphire Tower at 5:30 p.m., carrying a check for $50,000 and a job offer that would change his life. He sat in his car in the parking garage and cried. Great heaving sobs that shook his entire body. For 3 years he had been holding everything together with duct tape and willpower, and in one single afternoon everything had changed. Not because he was special, not because he was lucky, but because he had given a meal to a hungry girl when he had every reason not to. Reed drove straight to the bank. He deposited the check. Then he drove to Jamie's school and picked him up from after-school care. "Hey, Dad!" Jamie ran over, backpack bouncing. "How was work?" "It was good, buddy," Reed said, kneeling down to his son's level. "Really good. How was school?" "We learned about fractions." "That's great." They walked to the car together. Jamie climbed into his booster seat. "Dad?" Jamie asked as Reed buckled him in. "Yeah, buddy? Can we have pizza tonight?" Reed thought of the check, the $50,000, the new job, the health insurance, the future that had just opened up in front of them like a door he didn't know existed. "Yeah," Reed said, his voice thick with emotion. "We can have pizza tonight." "Really?" Jamie's face lit up. They hadn't had pizza in months. "Really?" If this story is hitting you right in the heart, do me a favor and hit that like button. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Because stories like this prove that kindness is a universal language, and I want to know where in the world you're hearing it. That night, Reed and Jamie sat at their small kitchen table eating pizza. Jamie talked non-stop about his day, about his friends, about the frog he saw at recess. Reed listened to every word. After Jamie went to bed, Reed sat alone in the living room. He pulled out his phone and looked at his bank account. $50,002.13. He stared at that number for a long time. Then his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Mr. Hawthorne. This is Isla. I wanted to say thank you again for last night. You didn't just give me food. You reminded me that good people still exist. I hope your life gets better. You deserve it." Reed typed back, "Thank you, Isla. I'm glad you're safe. Take care of yourself, and tell your mom she raised a good kid." A moment later, another text came through. "She said the same thing about you and your son." Reed smiled. He set his phone down and closed his eyes. For the first time in 3 years, Reed Hawthorne went to bed with a full stomach and hope in his heart. 3 months later, Reed stood in his new office at Meridian Solutions Group. It was small but clean. A desk, a computer, a window that looked out over downtown Boise. He had paid off all of Grace's medical debt, every cent. He had caught up on rent. He had bought Jamie new clothes, new shoes, new school supplies. He had taken his son to a real doctor for a checkup for the first time in 2 years. Everything was okay. No, better than okay. Everything was actually good. Reed's phone buzzed. A text from Violet.
Team meeting in conference room B in 10 minutes. Your input is needed on the new building security system. Reed smiled. His input. They valued his opinion here. They listened to him. He walked down the hallway toward the conference room. As he passed Violet's office, he saw her through the glass wall. She was sitting at her desk with Isla. They were laughing about something. Isla was showing her mother something on her phone. They looked happy. Violet saw Reed and waved. Reed waved back. A month ago, Isla had started volunteering at the Boise Rescue Mission, serving meals to homeless people 3 times a week. "I want to be like you, Mr. Hawthorne," she had told Reed one day when they crossed paths in the lobby. "I want to see people who need help and do something about it." Reed had been so moved he couldn't speak. Now, walking into the conference room, Reed thought about that night at Martin's Diner, about the meatloaf special, about the choice he had made. He could have eaten that meal. He could have walked away. He could have pretended not to see. But he hadn't. And that single choice had changed everything. Not because Reed was special, not because the universe owed him something, but because kindness is never wasted, even when it costs you, especially when it costs you. 6 months later, Reed and Jamie moved out of Pine Ridge Apartments. They moved into a small house on the east side of Boise. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, a porch where Reed could sit and drink his coffee in the morning. Jamie had his own room for the first time in his life. He decorated it with posters of dinosaurs and superheroes. One Saturday afternoon, Reed was in the backyard building a small garden. Jamie was helping, digging holes for tomato plants. "Dad?" Jamie asked, his hands covered in dirt. "Yeah, buddy? Are we rich now?" Reed laughed. "No, we're not rich, but we're okay, and that's more than enough." Jamie nodded thoughtfully. Then he asked, "Is this because you helped that girl?" Reed stopped digging. "What?" "The girl at the diner, Miss Violet's daughter. You helped her, and then she helped us, right?" Reed set down his shovel and knelt beside his son. "How did you know about that?" "I heard you talking to Mrs. Patterson about it." Reed smiled. "Yeah, buddy, that's part of it." "So if you're nice to people, nice things happen to you?" Reed thought carefully about his answer. "Not always. Sometimes you're nice to people and nothing happens. Sometimes you help someone and they never say thank you. Sometimes you give everything you have and you still lose." Jamie frowned. "Then why do it?" "Because being kind isn't about getting something back. It's about being the kind of person you want to be, the kind of person your mom was." Jamie's eyes got wide. "Mom would have helped that girl too, wouldn't she?" "Yeah, she would have, without thinking twice." Jamie nodded. "Then I want to be like Mom, and like you." Reed pulled his son into a hug and held him tight. 1 year after that night at Martin's Diner, Violet Ashford called Reed into her office. "Close the door," she said. Reed did. His heart started beating faster. In his experience, close the door was never good. But Violet was smiling. "Sit down, Reed." He sat. "I have a proposal for you," Violet said. "I'm expanding the company. We're opening a second office in Portland. We need someone to run the facilities operations there. Full relocation package, $95,000 salary, company car, moving expenses covered." Reed stared at her. "You want me to move to Portland?" "I want you to have options," Violet corrected. "You can stay here if you prefer. Your job is secure. But if you want a fresh start, a bigger opportunity, it's yours." Reed thought about it. Portland, a new city, new schools for Jamie, new everything. "Can I think about it?" Reed asked. "Of course. Take your time." Reed stood to leave. Then he turned back. "Violet, can I ask you something? Anything. Why me? I mean, really. You could have just given me the check and never thought about me again. Why the job? Why the promotions? Why all of this?" Violet leaned back in her chair. "Do you know what the hardest thing to find in business is, Reed?" "What?" "Integrity," Violet said. "I can train someone to fix a pipe. I can teach someone to manage a budget, but I can't teach someone to do the right thing when nobody's watching. You already have that, and that makes you more valuable than you realize." She paused. "The night you gave Isla your meal, you thought you were just helping a hungry girl, but what you actually did was show me what kind of man you are, and that's the kind of man I want on my team." Reed felt his eyes burn. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. You earned it."
That evening, Reed sat on his porch with a beer. The sun was setting over Boise. The sky was orange and pink and purple. His phone buzzed. A text from Isla. "Hey, Mr. Hawthorne, just got accepted to Seattle University. Full scholarship. I'm going to study social work. I want to help people like you helped me." Reed smiled and typed back. "I'm proud of you, Isla. You're going to change a lot of lives. I learned from the best." Reed set his phone down and closed his eyes. He thought about Grace, about the promise he had made to her, about the night at Martin's diner when he was hungry and tired and had every reason to walk away. He thought about how one meal, one choice, one moment of kindness had turned into this, a new life, a new job, a future for his son, and all because he had kept a promise to his dying wife. Don't look away, even when it costs you, especially when it costs you. Reed opened his eyes and looked up at the sky. "I kept my promise, Grace," he whispered, "and you were right. It cost me everything I had, but I got back so much more." The wind blew gently through the trees, and for just a moment, Reed could swear he heard Grace's voice on the breeze. "I'm proud of you." If this story moved you, if it reminded you that kindness still matters in this world, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we share stories like this every single week. Stories about real people making real differences. Stories that prove humanity is still worth believing in. And let me ask you one final question. Have you ever helped someone when you had nothing left to give? Tell your story in the comments, because every act of kindness, no matter how small, deserves to be remembered. See you in the next video.